Every day in Iowa City, I see people in passing, and I think to myself,
I wonder who that person is.
Did he grow up here?
Or did he come for college and
end up staying because
he got a grant for his research? Or maybe the love of his life?
If he's a townie, they
decide to raise their kids here.
In Iowa City, today I see people
every day.
And wonder, what's her story?
and wonder
What she does for a living.
I see her around.
Walking her dog.
Maybe she's the writer of
that book I loved so much.
Maybe she's a dancer.
A chef.
Iowa City is interesting like that.
The guy sitting next to you on the bus
could be your new favorite singer?
that lady who
Held the door open for you.
Could be a filmmaker.
A politician.
I see people.
I see people every day and wonder.
And wonder.
What's your story?
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 it's your story. Joe Patrick is an artist whose drawings have been described as breathing. Joe says that it is a certainty that people will always like making images. His lack of pretension when talking about art reminds us that artistry is as natural to us as breathing. Joe Patrick shows us that it's how we see, how we interpret and connect to the subject, the world around us, that makes art a reflection of the artist. In this episode of I See People, catch a glimpse into the dancing, charming mind of Joe Patrick. This is his story.
So I've already messed up this paper, you know, with this kind of amorphous shape here that has nothing to do with you, but I thought maybe this had something to do with you, but I don't know. That's like, maybe that's going to be the head, maybe. I thought.
Well, that's a good place to start. How do you start? I mean, is it always different?
Always start differently. I never know what anything's going to look like. I start somehow, though, with the idea that I want to make some trouble for myself. You know what I mean? This already has gotten the paper sort of messed up in a way, so now I have to deal with this. And usually on a blank sheet of paper, you know, here it is blank, and I just scribble on it and sort of scribble looking at the model. But maybe scribble kind of like, I'll show you what I sort of scribble like, you know, like doing something like that, which might be your chin or maybe hair or something, I don't know. But here, I'm just going to get rid of this stuff, probably. Who knows? But somewhere there is the start of this thing of maybe, I'm not sure. You better stop me because, I mean, you better start asking questions.
Let's start at the beginning with you.
Beginning with
the
me?
beginning.
My goodness,
yeah.
You know how old I am, so that's so long ago, I can't remember.
So where are you from originally?
I'm originally from South Carolina.
Where in South Carolina?
White Oak, South Carolina, which is a little tiny hamlet where most of the people who live there, or at least when I was growing up, were named Patrick. I grew up on what is now called Patrick Road, but it was not called that when I lived there.
So you were related to the whole town?
Yeah, everybody. Well, my father was one of 17 brothers and sisters, and he had uncles and aunts and cousins and whatever, so it was, you know, a fecund family, I guess you might say.
So at what point in your life did you realize that you had this gift, this talent, this thing that you can do, this drawing?
I was drawing as a little child. I drew girls and horses, and not horses. I didn't draw many horses. I pretended I was a horse for a while, but I drew girls and cows because I lived on a farm that had a lot of cows. I knew all the cows by name and by sound. This is not what we need to talk about, though. I don't want to talk about my ability to imitate the cows in my father's pasture.
So when I knew I was going to be interviewing you, I kind of put it out there and said, what should I ask Joe? And one of the questions that actually came from one of your neighbors here in the neighborhood was what you think is going to happen to the sort of the future of artistry, because he said so many kids are spending all their time texting or playing with, you know, a computer, and instead when kids were bored they used to doodle.
Probably a certainty that people will always like making images one way or another, and I'm not opposed to the proliferation of...
You're not a Luddite?
I'm not a Luddite. I'm a troglodyte, but not a Luddite. Now, I do try to, use my computer, and I love emailing, and of course I like keeping up with friends and people.
But your art, though, you don't delve into the digital realm so much. This is...
No, but I've recently discovered that I love my little digital camera. And I still use a single lens reflex to make photographs in the market in Oaxaca. And then I transfer those images to a digital format, and I print them out and sometimes exhibit those photographs of Oaxacan markets.
When I look at your, those are oil paintings of the Oaxaca market.
Yeah.
When I look at those oil paintings, I've many times, had I not seen them in real life first, I would have thought, oh, that's a photograph.
Yeah,
had I seen
know.
it online first, so because it's so realistic, and the way that your eye works is just like a camera.
But an eye and a camera are two different things, and the camera is sort of static, whereas your eye is like moving all around all the time, and your brain is collecting information that the camera can't collect. I mean, I'm thinking all the while, and I guess the camera is not paid to think. And I'm thinking about you and what your background is, and how beautiful you are, and how your physiognomy has a certain kind of look at this. See this? It's starting to be something. It's starting to be something. And it has a certain kind of dramatic presence, but who doesn't? Everybody does, one way or another, and that's what I'm really interested in the drawings, is finding something about that person that's interesting to me, and just interesting.
So Joe, you taught painting at the University of
Drawing,
Iowa.
mostly, and painting. I mean, the things that I did in painting were toward the end of my many years there, and they were workshops and critiques and that kind of thing that everybody takes part in. But sometimes I was responsible for, along with somebody else generally, for a graduate workshop class, or which is just another way of saying a critique class. I always loved that business of looking at other people's work and then spinning off my thoughts about them, and seeing how that dovetailed with what they were after, or what they had. It's all based on looking at the thing, not theory so much for me as that eyeball contact with. It's like the drawing too. That's all about my looking. I think I always was a big promoter of perceptual drawing, that is, looking at a thing and then translating that thing from that real three-dimensional world, or the world you could walk around, into a world that's flat. And so it's all make-believe, and it's not real, but it is, in another way, it's layers of different realities, and that's why it's not like a camera. Yes. I mean, even though I do use a camera in these paintings, I use the camera image, the image the camera has gotten, but I think there's a lot of other stuff that goes into those paintings that are stuff that comes out of my head or hand, or even my heart. I'm not sure. Let's see now. Where is your mouth really? It's a big chin. You have a bigger chin than I've allowed here. So I'll just erase half of what I've drawn here. Give you a bigger chin like your mother gave you. Or your father, I don't know.
No, you've been doing a whole portrait series, and
well, I've been doing that
forever.
For years. You were talking about some people who you saw images of them on my website who I drew